Welcome to A Shock in the Dark. I'm the narrator tonight, coming to you from Sweetwater, Texas. For every episode of Season 5 of the show, I'm driving all over the United States, traveling to where your letters take me, and I'm getting as close as I am able to the actual sites where these things took place. That's why right now I'm in Sweetwater, Texas, the origin of tonight's letter. Hello, A Shock in the Dark. I'm a huge fan of your videos. I love the way you tell stories. I hope you can help me, or I hope somebody listening can help me. To be transparent, I don't know if my thing is paranormal or not. I don't know if it's a human evolution thing, or maybe it's just a skill I developed or something, but here's everything. I'm not a writer, so I apologize that I'm all over the place with this. My name is Laura. I live in Sweetwater, Texas, which is actually a really nice small town. I was born here, and other than moving away for a couple of years when I was younger, I've lived here my whole life. Other than it being a nice place to live, I can tell you we have a crazy amount of wind turbines here. I mean, as far as the eye can see. And just for geographical reference, we're less than an hour's drive from Abilene. Now, I've heard you say that you usually don't believe it when people say they're sensitive or they're psychic, and I'm not claiming either one of those things, but I believe I have an ability that I've never really heard of before, and I can't find anything exactly like this anywhere. It's a very specific and peculiar way I sense danger. I guess the closest thing I can compare it to is Spider-Man's tingle he gets when something bad is happening. I just asked my boyfriend. He says it's called Spidey senses. And in the comics, you can tell by the squiggly lines coming out of his head. I don't know. I don't read comics like evidently my boyfriend does. But my thing isn't exactly like that. And I'll try to describe it the best I can. First, my thing only works on people. Trust me, a few years ago, my car was rear-ended by a city bus. I never saw it coming. It seems to me it revolves around people and their intentions. Like, if somebody's got bad intentions, they're out to hurt somebody, rob somebody, rip somebody off, or maybe even if they're just angry, I pick up on it. From my perspective, this is what it's like. And I'll explain it in as much detail as possible because I want to find other people who have the same thing. Whenever this happens, whenever I can sense danger, other people kind of go out of focus. In fact, everything in the area goes out of focus, and the person in question gets super in focus. Like, the person who means harm is in high def, and everyone and everything else, the lens is out of focus. And the focus on the person in question it kind of extends from them like 5 or 6 inches from their body, like they're in their own bubble of focus, if that makes sense. At the same time, something happens with sound. I can be in the most crowded place, the noisiest place, and the sound of everything slowly fades into sounding like everything and everyone is underwater. It actually becomes hard to hear, even if a friend is right next to me talking in my ear. That is, everyone and everything except for the person who means harm and what that person's doing. For example, if the person has keys in their hand, I can hear the distinct sound of each key as it rings out when it collides with another key. And I could probably tell you the exact coins somebody has in their pocket, although I've never had the opportunity to test that theory. I've tried to set up tests with friends before. I had them approach me as if they're going to do me harm, and even had them think in their mind that they hate me and want to hurt me, but apparently it needs to be legit before my senses go off. I didn't always have this ability. When I was 22, I moved to Boston, Massachusetts for a job. I'm sure Boston is great for many people. I mean, obviously it is, but it turns out Boston's not the place for a country girl like me. But it was while I was there in Boston that my abilities developed over the matter of just a few days. I thought I might have a tumor or something at first, but walking to work every day for over a year taught me fairly quickly that this would only happen when some gross old man was following me or tried to touch me, or somebody in a van would pull up and offer to sell me a brand new Mac laptop for $100. But the day I got robbed sealed the deal. I was walking home from work about 7 o'clock in the evening when everything just started going underwater. Then, people, the buildings, all started getting out of focus. I was looking around trying to find somebody in focus. I was getting really nervous, but there was not anybody in focus. And I started doubting myself again. Maybe I was having a stroke. Just as I had that thought, I heard the sound of footsteps in full stereo, loud and sharp. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk trying to hone in on exactly where this person was, when I felt a gun in my back.
Hand over your bag and your phone, and don't forget your wallet, and you won't get hurt. You make a move or scream, and I'll drop you where you stand. That's a 9mm in your back, and it'll make a hole the size of a grapefruit on you. I don't want to hurt you, but I will.
So, I passed my bag back to him, along with my work phone. I had a second phone, my personal phone, in my coat pocket, but I didn't give him that.
Okay, stay right there. Do not turn around. Stay frozen. Count to 50. And when you're done, just keep walking forward to the end of the block. Do you understand?
I nodded yes, and that was it. But about 5 seconds later, this man in a long coat walked past me from the rear to the front, and he was completely in focus. I knew instantly that was the man who robbed me. I pretended not to notice him, even as he glanced over his shoulder at me. I just stood there keeping my eye on where he was going, making sure I could get a good description. And the second he took a right around the corner, I grabbed my personal cell and I called 911. Luckily, they got the word out quickly, and apparently because he had used a gun, there were suddenly loads of cops with lights and sirens all around looking for this guy. My blurry vision and underwater sounds returned to normal, and about 30 minutes later, they had me climb into the back of a police car and drive by a place where they had arrested somebody matching this guy's description. Sure enough, it was him. I got my stuff back, and the police thanked me because they said this guy had robbed about 20 other people. He was even a suspect in a shooting that had happened the previous year. Nobody ever got a good description of this guy before. Probably because of that clever move he had where he would make you think he's heading the other way from you, but really he would walk right past you casually. And that's not even the story I wanted to tell you. I'm sorry this turned out so long, but I wanted to explain everything, but I'm having a hard time trying to find out what this is and other people who have it. So here's one more experience I had with this. Feel free to omit the story if it's too long for your show. Last March, me and some of my girlfriends went down to the Coliseum where they hold stuff like rodeos and barrel races, but we went for this thing they do every year called Rattlesnake Roundup. None of us are, big into rattlesnakes or anything, and nothing against anybody who is, but when you live in a small town, you'll be amazed at what passes for entertainment. At the Rattlesnake Roundup, if you can dream up anything you can do with a rattlesnake, you can find it at that show. If you want to pet one, or watch one get stuffed, or feed one, or milk one, you got it. Now, for some of these activities, snakes are obviously stressed. Like, to milk a rattlesnake, remove the venom so hospitals can make anti-venom. You got to get these snakes' fangs to drive down through a covering over a container. Obviously, snakes don't like that. It occurred to me at this show, I've never had my danger senses work on an animal. I thought back to times when a dog would be snarling and viciously barking at me, and keying in on an animal has never happened. Well, anyway, we got our fill of snakes for the day and left the building on our way to my car when I noticed things started to blur a bit, and I was just getting a little bit of that underwater sound. It caught me off guard a little because, while it was used to happen fairly often when I lived in Boston, it rarely happened since I moved back to Sweetwater. I didn't see anybody around, so I just picked up my pace a little and kept moving toward the car with my two girlfriends. Right as we got to the car, suddenly everything got crazy blurry, and the sound was deep underwater when this ultra high-def guy comes out from around the corner from behind this big old truck and says, excuse me, ladies, I'm sorry to bother you, but my battery died. Could you possibly give me a jump? I told him, sorry, I don't have jumper cables. It's all right, I got cables if you just pop open your hood. Now, ever since I started getting these warnings, I had never seen anything get so blurry before, or seen a person get so amazingly sharp high def. I had never experienced the sound going away to such a degree to where I could hear my own voice inside my head. Like I had my ears completely plugged up. Every sense I have was telling me to run. Danger. Escape. I couldn't drive like that. So I quickly handed one of my friends my keys, gave her a very stern look, and said, "You drive. We have to go now." "Sorry," I shouted to the guy. That's the great thing about having girlfriends that are so close. She didn't hesitate, no questions asked. We just jumped in my car and locked the doors and took off in record time. I knew I had to do something, so I called the police. I couldn't tell them my danger signals were popping off, so I just told the dispatcher there was a creepy, suspicious guy trying to lure girls to him at the Coliseum parking lot, and I told them exactly where he was and what he looked like and his car description. I never got a call back about the guy until a couple of months ago. I had basically forgotten all about it when sometime near the end of August, I got a call from the Nolan County District Attorney's Office. Long story short, they said this guy was working with another guy, and they had what they told me was called a kidnap kit in a duffel bag in his trunk. You know, stuff like tape and rope and plastic sheets and chloroform. They also had guns and some pain pills and fentanyl. They said it probably was not human trafficking, but, they're still investigating, so I don't know. And I don't know much about law jargon, so I may have some of this wrong, but he and that other man are facing a lot of charges, including, conspiracy to kidnap. It looks like they got more federal charges for him or something. They didn't give me those details, but that's what I take it to be. So, do you know what this is? Have you heard of anybody having this before? Seriously, I would even take some good guesses at this point. If you know of anybody who has spidey senses like I do, please tell them to get in touch. I'd like to find somebody else who has this thing. Thanks for your help, and feel free to forward me anybody's information that you get in an email. Your friend, Laura. I've never heard of anything like that, but it sounds psychic to me. So, if you know what that is, please send me an email to ashockinthedark@gmail.com. That's the same place you'd send your true, spooky, scary story that I could read on my show. In the meantime, the Shock in the Dark tour of the United States continues as your letters dictate our journey. Next week, 2 crazy stories from Fredericksburg, Texas, as I keep heading east. To support this free channel, subscribe, make a comment, any comment at all. Push the thumbs up button. In the meantime, this is your narrator. Good night, wherever and whoever You walk.